I am trying to give you guys quality content, but bitch, that is a lot of work. Okay, Japan. Hi. Coming to you from Japan. Can we just take a second? The last video that I recorded, I really did not think I was going to make it to Japan. I really thought I was going to have to cancel my trip and go home. To be able to sit here in Japan and know that I'm flying out to the Philippines tomorrow is just a gift. Period. Period. So just a moment of absolute gratitude for that even being a thing. Y'all. The day that I flew out of Indonesia, I went to the urgent care in the morning. My wound, thankfully, thank the Lord, thank the heavens, thank Buddha, thank whoever you want to thank, bitch, but my wound was healing. The doctor had suggested that I get another course of antibiotics. Basically, it was just like, it's healing, like you're good to go. Just make sure you see a doctor in Japan. That night, I flew out of Indonesia. The driver who was taking me to the airport could not understand, like it wouldn't compute that I stayed in the homestay the entire time. And I was trying to explain to him, I'm like, no, like I couldn't leave the homestay. And he was like, not even for a little bit. And I was like, I mean, for a little bit, yes. Like I went across the street to a little restaurant, but that's about it. We're staying at a hostel and I am literally in the shared lounge. I requested this lounge for 2 hours. Okay, girl, that's how much I care. So I flew out of Indonesia. God, that flight was a bitch, bro. That flight, I flew from Indonesia to China overnight and I barely slept. It was such a turbulent flight. I don't know why, but I literally slept maybe like 2 hours on like a 7 hour flight. Not a good time. Flew into Chiamen. Or was that the airline? Bitch, I can't remember. I was there for 8 hours. My intention was to explore the city for the 8 hours that I was there. But given that I hadn't slept and given that my foot just wasn't optimal and I had all these luggages, it just didn't feel like the right move to go out and explore. And so I ended up staying at the airport the entire time. I had the best Shin ramen. Oh my God. No, but for real, it was like the best ramen, I think, honestly. I'm sorry, Japan, but it kind of beats Japan ramen. And that's saying something because Japan ramen is bomb diggity dog. I flew from China to Osaka. That flight was, I think, 3 hours. Then I finally got reunited with my boo, my mans, and that was amazing. That felt so good to finally be together with G. That night, I had told them that I wanted to get ramen, which is hilarious because I got ramen at the airport in China, but bitch, one in Asia. So I ended up having ramen again that night. It was so good. Stayed in a cute little Airbnb in Osaka, not far from the city, but it was like an urban type place. I really enjoyed staying there, honestly. They have cute cafes around the area. They have a park nearby that I actually went to on one of the days that we were there. Osaka, before I get started, that night we went to ramen, and then the following day we ended up walking around Dotonbori, which is like a really popular like shopping district. Ended up going to a coffee shop, and we met a guy who's from the U.S. who was living in Japan, and he got to talk to us about his experience as a white guy living in Japan. Gave us a couple shots to celebrate G's birthday. Then we went to the doctor. I didn't realize how nervous I was until G mentioned it because he could tell that I was fidgety. And he was like, hey, you should write up like a summary of what's gone on so that when you see the doctor, not only can you copy and paste it into Google Translate, but you could have everything fresh in your mind. And let me tell you, I used to be a cultural navigator at a children's hospital. Like it was my job to know how to prepare for an appointment. And yet, like because it was me and I was being impacted, and I talked about this in my last video, but seeking medical care in a different country when you don't have health insurance and you don't speak the language that the doctor speaks is just really daunting. And I think it just really got into my head because G was like, yo, are you okay? Like you look really anxious. And I was like, also because the wound had been covered and I hadn't seen it, and I had been traveling and walking a lot. I don't know what my wound is going to look like. Is it continuing to get better? Is it getting worse? And so luckily it only got better and better and better. The doctor actually was like, yeah, you don't need to put a bandage on that anymore. And I was like, bitch, we have been doing wound care every 2 days diligently I'm eating more protein than I have in a very long time. I've been doing all of these things to make sure this wound heals. In no way I'm just not going to put a bandage on it. Throwing a little bit of shade. At one point, he was like, "Yeah, it's because you came from India and Indonesia, but Japan is cleaner." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He basically told me, "You don't need to come back. You don't need antibiotics. Your wound is healing. Go on your own way and enjoy the rest of your trip." That was the most amazing news I had gotten in a very long time. So G and I ended up going out to dinner and just being super excited. And he told me that for a while he wasn't sure how things were going to go, if I was going to need to rest the whole time or if I was going to be up for walking around a lot. And bitch, this man got the green light to take me everywhere. And let me tell you, he took me everywhere. I've been in Japan for 12 full days, and I'm so grateful that I am in this country. I actually love Japan. Japan was never really on my bucket list. It wasn't really a culture or a country that I had ever really done any research on. Did kind of come not sure what I was going to get myself into. I know I like Asian food, but that's an open blanket statement. I mean, now that I've been to different parts of Asia, everyone's cuisine is so different. And I'd just be like, "Oh, I like Asian food." Like, bitch, no. What kind are we talking here? Japanese cuisine is very special all on its own, and it's got a very distinct taste. And so, yeah, like Japan just wasn't something that I had ever thought about wanting to come. Like, all I know about Japan is what the US did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think my knowledge about Japan was one, very distorted, two, very limited. I lacked the knowledge. I lacked the awareness of this beautiful country. I was telling G the other day, I'm like, I'm so grateful that you chose Japan as one of the places that you wanted to visit, because this is not a place that I would have come to by myself. This place is amazing. Go through some of the things that we did out here. In Osaka, we did the Dotonbori district. Talked about that already. Other thing we did while we were in Osaka is I went to Nara Park and I got to feed the deer. At the park, they have a really big temple known as the Dodaihi Daibutsuden temple. It's got one of the biggest Buddha statues. That shit, the temple from the outside was so cool. The Buddha statue was also so impressive to see in person and just be like, whoa, what the fuck? Especially after learning so much about Buddhism in my previous travel in India. Such a beautiful day, actually. We walked around the park, being with G, just being in a better place. Cheers to that, bitch. Cheers to my foot. Yeah, just being in a better mental space around the fact that my foot had been healing. Another day, we took a train to the city of Kyoto and we tried doing one of those free tours. You can go on the website, it shows you different tour guides and what they offer, what kind of tours they offer, and on a donation basis. So you don't have to pay a significant amount of money to be able to tour the city. Of course, it's also not like a super intricate or detailed tour. Like, our tour was dope, but there was a lot of people and it wasn't as informative as we hoped it would be, but it was still cool to walk around. He did take us to the geisha district. We went to a temple in Osaka. There's so many temples. There's so many temples. They're all so beautiful. I'm definitely templed out. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna be real. The Fushimi Inari Shrine, I was so impressed. I was impressed by the temples. I was impressed by the shrines. I don't know the history of it. Kind of sad that I don't. That's one downside to not doing much research and just kind of letting G do what he wanted to do with Japan, is that a lot of the places that I was going into blindly. And while that's always fun to like see something without any bias, you also don't fucking know what the fuck you're looking at. Another one of the days that we were in Osaka, G wanted to go to the Osaka Castle Park, and we also ended up doing a picnic. So we went to like a grocery store and we got some bento boxes and just hung out at the park and people watched. That day was so beautiful and so many people were out, just families and friends, and people were drinking and eating and laughing and playing games. It was actually really cool to see all of that. Osaka, just in general, beautiful. Loved it. Loved everything about Osaka. I believe it's the second biggest city in Japan. It was really cool to compare it to Tokyo. The day that we left Osaka, we actually needed to leave our Airbnb in the morning. Dropped off our luggage at one of the train stations. They have these lockers in every fucking station. honestly, where you can just put your things and go explore for the day. And so that's what we did. We ended up finding a cafe, able to get that booked for 3 hours. I ended up paying like $12, but we were able to shower, which was so amazing because then we were going to take an overnight bus to Tokyo. Chose to do the overnight bus because I had heard a lot of things about it and I was really curious. The reason we didn't take the bullet train to Tokyo is because I wanted to experience the overnight bus. It was also significantly cheaper. If we had taken the bullet train, I think we were looking at paying upwards of $150 versus the $60 that we ended up paying. We're trying to take the more economical route with this entire trip, and so we ended up doing the overnight bus. A brief little review on the overnight bus. It was pretty comfortable. I feel like the seats were better than, say, an airplane, but they weren't super duper top notch cozy. We were able to sleep most of the time. It was an 8-hour drive from Osaka to Tokyo. We're sitting in the front, so we had a lot of leg space. Yeah, the overnight bus was dope. Just in Tokyo for the morning and afternoon because we ended up going directly to a ryokan in Mitake Mountain, which is a small little mountain town in Japan. G really wanted to spend his birthday at a ryokan. He ended up finding one on booking.com. Highly recommend this ryokan, to be quite honest. For those that don't know what a ryokan is, I didn't know. It's essentially a traditional Japanese inn. The place that we went to was spectacular. Like the room, they've got mats on the ground. They have one table in the middle. You eat traditional Japanese food. At night, the table goes away and they pull out mats that you sleep on. So you essentially sleep on the ground. The mats are super comfortable. They also have shared showers with a giant hot tub in the shower. Because of my wound, I wasn't able to get into that bathtub. The room was like steam. It was so wonderful. Family running the ryokan, I believe, has been running it for over 150 years. It was so beautiful. I ended up paying around $400. Happy birthday, G. It was amazing. I mean, the food, I tried so many new things, but I'm also so grateful because otherwise I feel like I wouldn't have tried all of the things that I did. It was rainy. We basically just like chilled and hung out, and see, after like going in Osaka, it was the perfect relax, just connect, and it was really lovely. I told G, I'm like, I know this is for you, I know this is your birthday, but this, honest to God, feels like a gift to me too. So grateful. I'm so grateful for that experience. And we got back to Tokyo. I'm just gonna run through it. So we did Shinjuku Gyoen National Gardens. We could see the cherry blossoms. We got to go see Shibuya Crossing, the most popular crossroad in Tokyo that you see in all of the pictures. Roommate Janine ended up flying into Japan, and so she got to hang out with us. So she flew in, and we ended up having dinner together. We went to a traditional izakaya, which is like a traditional bar. They have like a bunch of small plates that you can order, and we did Sensoji Temple, that big lantern. Did we went to park? We went to a jazz club. Oh my God. Okay, so the jazz club, I have to tell you guys about. The jazz club was so fucking cool. It's this tiny, tiny little space. It just fills up with people. They're like touching people shoulder to shoulder. There's like nowhere to sit. What the jazz club does is they invite people to sign up to jam with them on stage. And G ended up doing that. Had the most beautiful moment. I loved it so much. That night, G ended up inviting a buddy that he had met, and he came through. And so we ended up hanging out at the jazz bar and then going out to dinner afterwards. But G just jammed so naturally and beautifully, and you got to see chemistry with all of the people playing their different instruments. It was so cool to see. I highly recommend anybody go check out a jazz bar in Japan if you come visit. There's a big culture of jazz and it's a big community out here, and I think it's definitely something that you must see. So then today we went to the Tsukiji Nippon Fish Market, which honestly reminds me of Pike Place Market in Seattle. We also went to Sojoji Temple and we went to the Tokyo Skytree. It's just the main things that we did. Did a lot of thrifting. I think we went to like 3 or 4 different thrift shops while we were out here, and I got some cute things, food. Like we went to a bunch of different places. I've been drinking different teas, eating different mochis. It's definitely been harder to try and be low key because there's so much to see in Japan. I think G really tried to balance me resting and also me seeing everything that there is to see in Japan. What sticks out to me the most is those moments of doing like normal things. And one of the days we went to outside flea market, used clothing and used everything, and that was really fun. We ended up walking everywhere. I don't even know if there's Uber out here, but we ended up just using the metro system. Japan is just another world. I'm sure Japanese people feel this way when they go to Mexico City, because the way I felt about Mexico City and how overwhelmed I was by all of the things that you can do and see, I felt in Japan. But on top of that feeling, add on the layer of not knowing the country, not knowing the culture, not knowing the language, not knowing the cuisine, not knowing the cultural norms. I do feel like that was kind of irresponsible on my part to just kind of like show up in a country and be like, okay, we'll figure it out when we get here. But that also has kind of low key been how I've been traveling. I guess that's one of the lessons, right? Moving forward as I plan trips in the future, definitely just gonna do my research before I just book a flight somewhere. It's funny. G's friend, who we ended up going out to dinner with, who was at the jazz bar, he asked me if I was shocked by Japanese culture. I think I was more shocked when I arrived to India. I think that being my first Asian country after coming from Mexico, that was where the initial culture shock came. Being here in Japan, of course, I'm having to adjust to a new culture and new currency and new language and new everything. But it also feels like, okay, this is another country that I'm doing this with, right? Like it felt that way in India, it felt that way in Indonesia, and it felt that way in Japan. And I'm sure I'm going to feel the same way in the Philippines. It's just trying to scout the area and figure out how people do things and how people communicate. Overall, I get it. I get why Japan is hyped in the way that it is. I get why people want to come live here. I really enjoyed my time here. I think the people here are very nice. I've enjoyed talking to foreigners. I've enjoyed talking to Japanese people. I've enjoyed learning about their culture and just being around them and observing how they are to me and to others. And I love the silence of this country. It's very noticeable how silent, how clean. Even in the chaos, it feels calm. This is coming from somebody that's traveling through Japan, not somebody that's living here and working here, but there is a sense of calmness. I haven't had a negative experience at all. Everyone has been kind and respectful and inclusive. I've heard from the foreigners that live here trying to find housing as a foreigner, or sometimes you go into restaurants and they say that they're closed, or they say that they don't have an English menu and they basically don't want to serve you. But I was lucky enough that I never experienced that. It just felt very welcoming for me. The weather here is very comparative to Seattle, so I feel like I really adjusted nicely. I've really enjoyed my time here. I think there's a part of me that is feeling homesick. I could do it over again. I definitely wish I could have stayed in Japan longer. G and I have already decided that we have to come back to Japan and feel like Seattle and Japan have a bit of a connection. There's a big Japanese community. There are a lot of Japanese shops in Seattle. A lot of the food that we tried here in Japan, I've had in Seattle, and has the same sazon, like the same taste. And I'm super grateful for that, because now that I know more about the cuisine, I'm definitely going to be craving the ramen. How have I not talked about the ramen? Bitch, that shit is intricate. That shit has all the motherfucking toppings and all the different kinds of soups, all the different kinds of noodles. Fucking caldo, bro. It's just so much. variety. It's just been great. I mean, I've had ramen so many times here. So we fly back to Seattle with a long layover in Japan, and we did that on purpose. So we're coming back after Vietnam to Japan, and we'll be here for 8 hours, and we're already been like, okay, where are we gonna go eat? Where are we gonna go shop? What are we gonna like? We're being strategic. So this doesn't even feel like a goodbye. Japan, por siempre en mi corazón, ever in my heart. I love Japan. If anything was hard while I was here, it was just the fact that it was hard to rest. It was hard to chill because there was so much to see and do here. I think it's hard, like at least in Mexico City, it felt like we had done a lot early in the trip that by the end we were like, okay, it's all, I was there for a month, and here I was only here for 12 days. So just like with Mexico, it's one of those feelings of like I can go back to Mexico whenever, but with Japan, I don't know when I'll get to come back here, and there's so much novelty. I wanted to do all of the things. It was hard to rest. It was hard to slow down. I think there were times where I would tell G like I can't anymore. I physically can't. He'd be like, okay, like let's go home. I've come to the realization, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, that I don't want to travel for long periods of time. I'm ready to go home. I think I'm really homesick now. I think there's just been so much to learn about all of these wonderful countries and their cultures and their entire universes. It's been hard to not feel overwhelmed by it. Coming to Japan, there's so much I want to research. My list for things to look into and research is endless. Having traveled for now, I think we're coming up on 4 months. My brain just feels a little overloaded with new information and new cultures and new currencies and new everything. The kind of person that goes to a restaurant and there's the same thing. And occasionally a bitch will order something out of the ordinary, but for the most part, if I know what I like, I order the same motherfucking thing. It's been hard because we're trying new things and a new restaurant, we're trying a new place, and we're trying a new this and a new that. And it's like, can a bitch just go to the same place for once and know what I'm gonna get? Everything is new. Just been too much novelty. I'm just tired. I already recognize that I'm going to need to process everything that happened for the last 4 months. It's become very apparent that I do enjoy traveling, but I don't enjoy traveling for long periods of time like this. Quick relationship update. It was the first full day that G and I had been reunited. We were in Osaka and both bickered a little bit. We had to pause and talk about the fact that we had been traveling solo for the last 2 weeks and that we couldn't just jump into traveling together. Those 2 weeks really helped me see just how I have kind of let go of control of my life at times, and with my people pleasing tendencies. Like I just kind of go with the flow and I just kind of do whatever other people want to do. So kind of been the way in which I'm accustomed to traveling. I traveled a lot with family, and so I would just kind of do what family wanted to do, or I just kind of let other people take lead on what we were going to do in terms of travel. And travel solo gives you the perspective of being able to choose what you want to do and how and what pace and what kinds of things you want to see. And G and I talked about how important it was for me to kind of take ownership of some of the choices that we were making on the trip, just because I feel like oftentimes when things haven't gone well, I find a way to blame others for my experience and mad at others because I'm not happy. And I think like, oh, why did I let you choose for me? But then I'm mad at myself because I'm like, why didn't I do my due diligence and look into this thing? So it's been a lot of learning how to be more involved in the decision making beyond traveling. This is a big lesson that I'm really reflecting on, is this idea that I need to take ownership of my life. I can't keep letting other people choose for me, not my family, not my friends. Like I'm just easily swayed by other people's opinions because I'm trying to please people. And as much as I think that has been really kind and I think people really appreciated that, I also think that I've really resented people for it. I also have found that I'm not always enjoying myself. There have been many times where I'm at a party or I'm hanging out with someone or I'm doing something and I'm like, I don't want to be here. And yet I'm here because I'm trying to please this person, or I'm here because I said I would do this thing. So it really is this moment of realizing that I can change my mind. I can say no. I can do whatever I want to do, and I don't owe anyone anything. I have definitely allowed others to really influence my life and my decision making. Realizing just how important it is for me to be the owner of my life and my choices, and to have a supportive partner who is willing to be like, yeah, absolutely, that's important to you, it's important to me too. Of course I want you to have say, and of course I want you to feel like you're enjoying yourself and doing the things that you want to do. So like, figure out how we can do that. And then just kind of the last little reflection, this awareness of my health. So much gratitude for this experience, and for safety, and for food, and for walking, and for not having pain. I think I'm more aware of my privileges, and when I want to be snobby about food that I didn't like, being tired or whatever, like I always try to bring it back to this place of like, yo, you're so motherfucking lucky to be doing this, that I can continue on with this trip. I'm grateful that I got to live all of this, and I'm grateful that it's almost coming to a close, and I'm grateful that I'm almost going home. I wasn't excited about life before. I wasn't excited about anything before. And it's why I ran away. It's why I decided to quit my job and leave my apartment, and leave my family, leave my cat. I feel like I was running away, and now I don't need to. Like, this trip has really brought so much perspective, and it's not even over yet. We fly out to the Philippines tomorrow, and we'll be in the Philippines for a week. We've already decided that we're not going to do all of the things. We're just going to chill and eat good food and rest. And Vietnam is going to be similar. We're just there for a week as well. We're going to try and keep it low key and rest. I feel like I say that all the motherfucking time, and then, bitch, we do everything. Japan. I can't say this yet because I still have a couple more countries to see, but it's between Japan and Mexico City, bro. Thank you, Japan, for everything. Thank you for watching. We're getting some views on these videos, which is super dope. If there's any aspect of the trip that you are more interested in hearing about, leave a comment, let me know, and please subscribe and just talk to me. I want to know what you guys think of these videos. I will see you guys in my next video. I had stopped recording. I was putting away my things, and then I went to the bathroom, and then I realized, how could I not have talked about the toilets in Japan? Toilets in Japan could be an entire segment. They're the best toilets. They clean, they dry you. I mean, the seats are warm, bro. How am I gonna go from this to anywhere else? I'm really gonna miss the toilets. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.